Hi, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be discussing dual occupancy investments, what they are, how they work, and the advantages they offer. Stick around because we're also going to discuss the important recent state government changes here in Queensland which affect dual occupancies. We'll discuss what the changes were and how that may affect any potential future project that you're looking at. As always, if you're getting value from this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so that you're notified with each new video that we upload. Before we get going, I think it's most important that we look at a couple of key definitions regarding dual occupancies, because these definitions can change across different council codes and they also seem to get used interchangeably by people. So to simplify things, we'll start off with a couple of key definitions. The three important terms that I want to discuss to begin with are dual occupancy duplex, dual occupancy auxiliary, and granny flat. It's important to understand the difference between these three types of property investments. A dual occupancy is basically a term used interchangeably with duplex. So when you hear the term duplex and dual occupancy, know that they're often used interchangeably. Let's start with the duplex definition, or dual occupancy depending which way you want to go. A duplex has two dwellings on the one lot with the ability to strata title. Once they're individually titled, obviously you can sell them off separately. Dual occupancy auxiliary. This is different to a duplex because it's on one title. You still have two dwellings on a single lot, with the auxiliary unit being subject to size and siting requirements, and being on one title, they can't be sold off individually. Granny flat. Okay, this is a term used across Australia. I'm not sure that it's actually used anywhere else in the world. However, a granny flat is basically a secondary dwelling that is used in conjunction with a house, and it's designed to be let out to a member of the household. So the difference between a dual occupancy auxiliary and a granny flat is basically in that a granny flat should, with the council requirements, only be rented to a member of your family or a member of the household, as opposed to a dual occupancy auxiliary which can be leased to anybody. Let's discuss the recent Queensland state government changes regarding dual occupancies, because this may affect your future projects. So late last year, the Queensland government put out new policy regarding the renting out of secondary dwellings, essentially overriding the individual council rules. It sought to make it easier for homeowners to rent out secondary dwellings, such as granny flats, to other parties. So what do the changes mean? Well, without going into too much detail, essentially, they mean that if you have an existing granny flat in a council area which states that it has to be rented out to a member of your family or household, you can now rent it out to anybody. And also, moving forward, any granny flats that you build in an area where the council says that it has to be rented out to a member of your family can now be rented out to anybody. So basically, the Queensland state government has changed the rules for council, meaning that granny flats are pretty much the same as a dual occupancy auxiliary. Now, what council will do is they will start to put in their own set of rules around this and most likely charge headworks where there weren't headworks before. So council will try and recuperate some money and it will eventually even back out. Now, in areas where you couldn't build a dual occupancy auxiliary, but you could build a granny flat, you can now build a granny flat and rent them out to whoever you like. You'll still have to go through the standard process of a BA or DA depending on the area. So you'll still go through that building approval or development application process depending on how that council governs. Let's have a look at the Logan area. What we might do is bring the map up on the screen now and let's run through a bit of information about Logan. The Logan area is a local government area situated south of Brisbane in southeast Queensland. It shares a border with Brisbane to the north, the Gold Coast to the south, Ipswich and the Scenic Rim to the west, and the Redlands to the east. The current population of Logan is approximately 363,000 and it comprises over 70 suburbs. The Logan City Council has a great policy relating to secondary dwellings and as such has been a popular area for duplex and dual occupancy auxiliary investors. Dual occupancy auxiliary and granny flats will continue to be a popular option for investors in this area who are seeking a higher yield than a standard home. Now let's discuss dual occupancies and duplexes and dual occupancy auxiliaries. I want to discuss how each of them works and the individual advantages of each of them. Let's start with the dual occupancy duplex. Essentially what you'll do in this situation is you'll find a block of land that meets the council requirements. You'll then build through a DA or an MCU, which is a material change of use. Build the two dwellings and then strata title them and sell them off individually or keep them depending on how you want to do it. Now, you don't have to do the strata titling straight away. Many investors will actually leave it on one title to save themselves on rates and utilities. So you've got that option where you can strata title down the track or you can do it straight away. The advantage of doing it straight away is that you may see that initial uplift because you've suddenly now got two properties that can be sold off individually. You may see growth in the property price. So some people will do it straight away, some down the track. If you're looking to buy and hold and it's really a yield play, then you may be best not to strata title straight away so that you leave it on one title. What you need to do is compare the costs for council. Will there be any difference if I strata title these in my annual costs? And if there's a difference, you may want to leave it to down the track. Let's talk about the advantages that dual occupancies offer. Pretty much the advantages are around yield and potential uplift. So generally you have the opportunity with a dual occupancy or duplex project to get some uplift in that the final value of your two individual properties is higher than the total project cost. And that's why a lot of people seek to do these types of projects. Also have greater flexibility with a duplex dual oc project because you can sell them individually. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility and liquidity in the project as opposed to having all your funds in just one property or one title. In many instances, we'll have a little bit better cash flow, a little bit better rent return, and therefore a greater yield than what you would get in a comparable standard house project. That's not always the case, but in many instances, the yield is a little bit better. And obviously you're getting two rents from the one block of land. So providing you don't overpay for the land, you should get a greater cash flow. Let's talk about dual occupancy auxiliaries and or granny flats. As I've mentioned, these will be fairly similar now based on the Queensland state government changes which have just overridden the council codes. Basically, a dual occupancy auxiliary or granny flat is generally just a BA, just a building approval. You shouldn't have to go through a material change of use or development application. You should simply be able to build in line with the code, providing your block of land meets the requirements. So it should be a simpler process than a dual occupancy / duplex project. Advantages of the dual occupancy auxiliary or granny flat is that generally you'll get a higher yield than a standard property, and most instances a higher yield than what you get with a duplex. There's generally less expenses in a granny flat or dual occupancy auxiliary project than there is with the duplex project. Now, each individual council area will vary on what they charge for headworks or fees, but generally with one of these auxiliary projects, the yield play works a little bit better. You'll get a higher cash flow return than what you would with most duplexes. And that's one of the key advantages that people want. Generally don't have as high headworks, and it's an easier approval process, and it's less capital outlay than the two duplex projects. And look, in many instances, you would have that opportunity to convert it back to a standard dwelling if that's what you desired. So that's a little bit of information about the dual occupancy and duplex projects that you can do in the Logan area. These are definitely worth considering. We've been involved in hundreds of these over the years, and we've had some really good results for our clients. If you're interested in a potential project down the track, or you've just got some questions that you want answered, send through an email, ask@newproperty.com.au, and one of our team will come back to you. And if you've got value from this video, please like, subscribe, and tick the little bell so that you're notified with each new video that we upload.